Hello everyone, today I'm here to review and talk about Supernova by Marissa Meyer. So this is the third and final book in the Renegades trilogy, which you can see right behind me. I have reviewed both of the books in a single review, so I will link them up here and down below for you to check out. So today we're going to be talking about the third and final book in the trilogy, Supernova. Before I get into it, I do want to quickly tell you what the first book is about, Renegades, in case you're interested in it and want to learn more and figure out if you want to read it or not. Renegades, which is right here, sorry it's a little bit obstructed, is about pretty much heroes and villains, your classic kind of Marvel DC type of thing. I have Renegades, who are the heroes of the city called Gatlin and all across the world, but we follow a city called Gatlin in this primarily series. Renegades, like I said, are the heroes, they're the good guys. On the other side of the coin, we also have anarchists, who are the villains pretty much. So basically in Renegades, we have a character named Nova, who is an anarchist, and she has certain powers, as all of these characters do, and she has to go undercover within the Renegades to kind of do some things. So she does just that. So she's an anarchist masking herself as a renegade, a villain masking herself up like a hero. But when she gets into being a renegade, she learns that maybe she actually enjoys it, and she starts to feel very conflicted about it. So that's what the whole series is about. There's a lot more different storylines that go on with it, but pretty much all you need to know, it's a hero versus villain kind of thing. Lines get blurry, they get gray, it's not black or white anymore. Characters get, more than one-dimensional with the hero-villain complex, and it's a really fun series. It's one of my favorite because it is just that. It's fun. Not much like really in-depth things and things like that. There is at some point, but when I think about the series, I think of just how fun it is with the action and the hero versus villains, the kapow and bam, so their fights and stuff like that and all their powers. And I loved reading about their powers because they're very different than the powers I'm usually used to, because there are like a council of renegades who are like the elite that have like the typical invisibility, can fly, super strength, things like that. But as far as Nova and the renegades and our main renegade that we follow Nova and the renegade Adrian, who is alias name is Sketch. He can pretty much draw anything and he can pull it to life, which is a really cool thing, and that's explored more in the series. And Nova's powers is she can never sleep. It can be up forever, and she can also put people to sleep with a touch of her hand. We also have a character that kind of bleeds rubies and gems, and she has like a grappling hook, and so she can use them as weapons, which is really interesting. We also have a character that can transform herself into like a flock of butterflies, like a whole, I don't know what the terminology for that is. We have a character that can, signal smoke with his fingers, things like that. We have a character that has control of all like wasp and bees, and powers are kind of odd, but overall they were interesting. Powers I've never really seen before, because if you're like me, you've probably seen a lot of superhero movies. Like every Marvel movie I've seen a good majority of DC movies. I've seen the X-Men. I've seen a lot of powers. So it was interesting to read some powers that I haven't heard before, and I really enjoyed reading them. So I would highly recommend you check out Renegades. If you just are looking for a fun time, the classic hero versus villain thing, it will make you want to watch a Marvel movie afterwards, because I think it's just a classic like hero villain story. But yeah, I enjoy Renegades. I really recommend it. It was one of my favorite books when I read it 2 years ago. As far as Arch Enemies go, the second book in the trilogy, I did not like it really much at all. I believe this was supposed to be a duology, if I'm not mistaken. Please do not quote me on that. It was just supposed to be 2 books, and that was supposed to be it. But I think with the popularity of Renegades, Marissa Meyer decided to expand it to 3 books. And that's where Arch Enemies kind of falls. It was definitely suffering for it definitely suffered for me for second book syndrome, which is where not a lot happens. It's just a filler book to get you to the third book in the trilogy, and that's my opinion. A lot of people disagree with me. A lot of people love Arch Enemies, which is fine. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but I did not really enjoy it. I felt like nothing happened. It was far too long in my opinion. In fact, I could dare to say that all the books in the series are a little bit too lengthy for me. This one in particular, the last book, was like 540 pages. I do think 100 pages could have been shaved off, but that is just my personal opinion. So Arch Enemies, I did not really enjoy. It definitely felt like a filler of a book. Not a lot happened. But Supernova, I actually really enjoyed. So, like I said, before getting into spoilers, this book is 540 pages. I do think it took about 100 to 150 to really get into it. And I will say the last like 150 pages were explosive. So much happened, as a lot of times with trilogies do. Like you get your most action, all the reveals, all the plot, everything kind of culminating into one in the last 100 pages, which sometimes is a good thing, sometimes not so much, because sometimes it's just too much and you're overloaded and it just leaves off with nothing. But I have to say, the way Marissa Meyer ended this, I actually really enjoyed it, and I say the last half of the book really made up for the slow start of the beginning of the book. So what would I rate this? I'm still grappling with a 4 or 5, honestly. I know it's so hard to say because I talked about The Toll, another book I read that's also a last book in a trilogy, a couple weeks ago, and I said with that book as well that the first 200 pages were very slow, which hindered my review, so I gave it a 4. And that's kind of the same case with this one, but the last like 100 pages of this book were so explosive that I read it in one sitting. Like I had to keep reading and I had to see how it ended. And the ending I thought was amazing. So I'm like, I want to give it a 5 out of 5 because I just really enjoyed it. So right now it's at a 5 out of 5. I might consider moving my rating to 4 out of 5. I don't know. But either way, it's definitely a favorite of this year because I really enjoyed it. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, if you want a series about superheroes and villains and where lines get blurry, we also kind of have a friendship to lovers, hate to lovers thing, I highly recommend checking this out. It's a fun series. That's what I always classify it as. If you just want a fun series, you know, about superheroes and superpowers and villains and all that stuff, I'd recommend checking out the series. It's just a fun time overall. So as of right now, I will be talking about Supernova spoilers, so please do not watch any further if you have not read the book. So Supernova, like I said, Arch Enemies was just it was such a second book syndrome book. And that doesn't happen all the time. There are several books in a series that the second book's my favorite, such as Catching Fire. I do think a lot of trilogies suffer from the second book syndrome where it's just a filler book. Supernova pretty much leaves off, I think, right where maybe a week or two after Arch Enemies, because in Arch Enemies, the last bit of it, Nova broke into the headquarters, masking herself as Nightmare, her, you know, villainous, and she was trying to get Ace Anarchy's helmet, and Max gets in the middle of it, and he takes Frostbite's power, Janessa's power, and Nova saves him, and he doesn't realize that she's Nightmare, things like that, and so you're pretty much left to the balance, is Max okay or not, and he is, and pretty much we have Adrian vowing to, like, never, you know, he's gonna kill Nightmare, and Nova's very conflicted because she likes Adrian, but she's still Nightmare. And then Nova gets convicted because Dana is finally released as being, like, she was trapped as a butterfly for so long. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine that. But I really liked how she was trapped as butterflies for so long, and then she got to be human form. And then Ruby was like, are you nervous about, you know, being into butterflies again? She turned immediately into butterflies. She's like, I'm not afraid of my superpower. And I was like, I thought that was really awesome. Anyway, so Nova gets arrested and she's under the crimes for Nightmare, and things get tense, obviously, and all the accusations are pointing to her, all the evidence is stacking up. And then out of nowhere, Narcissa, I forget her name actually, forgive me, the librarian's granddaughter who can walk through mirrors, which I think is a very cool superpower, highly underrated. Like, imagine the places you can go because everywhere is mirrors. She pretends to be Nightmare so they can get Nova out of jail, which I was just like, wow. And then Adrian's very apologetic, which Adrian is such a character. I love him. He's so kind-hearted, so warm, and he forgives so easily. And I thought, you know, he was very quick to blame Nova, but I mean, we all knew that Nova was really Nightmare, so we're like, yeah, we understand. But when he figured out that she really wasn't Nightmare, or at least he thought, he just was like, so sorry, I'm so sorry, I can't believe it, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, whoa, like he forgave so quick, like, you just forgot it so quickly, but really all the evidence is really stacked upon her. He was even doubting the librarian's granddaughter, like, how is this possible? And I'm like, put it together. But anyway, so Nova goes back to the Renegades, and Ace Anarchy is also still in, you know, prison there, and they're going to kill him soon. So they're trying, the whole book is trying to free him and to get him back to be like the villains of all villains thing. And spoiler warning, they succeed with that huge auditorium thing where, you know, Honey releases all of those bees that have Agent N in them, which is a whole other thing with Agent N. It made me so angry of how much they talked about it and how they would just freely use it. And then so many people lost their powers that day because of Agent N, like Simon did, Thunderbird did, which is like the strongest one. Like I was, I just hated freaking Agent N. And then Callum died, and just that whole auditorium thing, like that battlefield thing, was just insane, because I thought Nova, that would be the time where she's like, you know, this is not okay, like we shouldn't be fighting like this. And she felt it a little bit, but it took her a while, a long while, to get to it, because they even captured Adrian and Ruby and all of the gang pretty much, and she even let like Adrian think like she was gonna hurt him for a while. Like he figured out that she was Nightmare, and again he forgave her so easily. What like a cinnamon roll of a character this man is. He's like, you're Nightmare, you've done a lot of things, but I still love you and I still believe in you. And I'm like, why can't every guy be like this? Because he could see the facade past Nova that she put on Nightmare, but she really wasn't Nightmare, okay? Like she wanted more. She wasn't just a black or white villain, you know, she had a lot of morally gray things in her, which I think one of the whole plots of this whole series is the definitive line of hero and villain, and how there's not a definitive line. You can be a hero and still do some morally gray things. You can be a villain and do some pretty decent things. You know, there's no really straight line you have to walk on sometimes. The line gets really rocky, the road gets rocky, and you know, it swerves and things like that. So I really like how they talked about that, and how Nova felt very conflicted about, you know, she's loyal to her uncle and she wants more, but she knows that this isn't right, and she finally stood up. And I was like, thank goodness. And we learned all along that Ace Anarchy's helmet is really the soul central of his power. You know, that it amplifies his power, but really Nova's dad, who can like pull the threads of like power or something like that. I get confused. It's been a couple weeks since I finished this, so my memory and details may be a little bit foggy. And basically she learns that her dad was really like really powerful. He even put like a star in her bracelet of all the power that they thought would defeat Captain Chromium, but really it was there to defeat Ace, because her dad knew that he did some bad things by making that helmet and he wanted to atone for it. And of course we have the big reveal that Ace Anarchy, you know, hired someone to kill all of her parents, which I think everyone saw coming. I knew myself, I saw that coming for a long time. I knew Ace Anarchy had something to do with her parents. Like the way he just swept her up and was like, oh, these people, the Renegades did it, da da da. I'm like, no, you're not a great guy. So he did it. So that reveal wasn't a really big shock to me. The whole fact of Adrian creating phobia, that was a big shock to me, and I'm surprised it was a shock because it was so obvious, and I hate myself so much for not seeing it. Like all of the evidence and the clues were there, and I just never put them together. And then finally, I think I was reading during creative phobia. Phobia killed his mom, and then the reason why Nova's parents died is because Adrian's mom died while she was watching them, so she couldn't do anything about it. So ultimately, is Nova's parents dying Adrian's fault? I mean, it's just interesting, the character phobia of how he was made and how Adrian made him and how he killed him. That was just, it was very interesting. I didn't see it coming. I really enjoyed it. Really liked it. Let's talk about the very last chapter. So, you know, at the very end, we have Nova getting back together with the gang, and she tells Adrian's dad, how do you feel about a villain falling in love with a hero? And he's like, I'm starting to think like, you know, there's no such thing as hero and villains anymore, which I love so much. It's the culmination of this whole series. And the very last chapter, we have somebody that we don't know's viewpoint of looking at the parade that they do every single year for the whole city and everything like that. And we see that, you know, that Nova and Adrian are up there, that Max is up there. I forgot. Max pretty much saved everybody. He put the helmet on and he sucked all the powers, and then he gave them all back, but he is powerless, so now people can be around him. So Max is the true MVP of this whole series, in my opinion. Also, Adrian killed Ace Anarchy. That's amazing. So much happened in the last 100 pages, I'm sorry. But basically, the last chapter, we are seeing a viewpoint from somebody that we don't know. And then in the very last page, we learn that it is Magpie, you know, the one that can touch things and feel their memories and things like that. And she is looking at, you know, Nova and Adrian kind of in disgust and things like that. And then she talks about her history, about how, you know, she wanted that bullet that she had, because that bullet is what almost killed her and what gave her her powers, because she was shot as a baby in the crib, and her parents died and her sister's nowhere to be seen. AKA, it's Nova's sister. Nova's sister is still alive. Didn't see that coming. didn't expect it. And also begs me to think about, this girl never like looked up the history of when she was supposed to die and figured out 2 and 2, like who was her family. I know Nova's like whole secret identity was Nightmare, but she was also like, nobody really knew except for the Anarchists that she was Ace Anarchy's niece. So I don't know if Magpie would have known that that's her sister, because they had several interactions and I never felt anything hugely sister with it. But then at the end, you know, we have that, you know, reveal that she is her sister and that her sister abandoned her, and you know, she's kind of salty about it, understandably so, and she doesn't know anything, and she also thinks Max is cute. So this leads me to think that Marissa Meyer is definitely going to continue with the series, and it's going to follow on a younger cast, because Magpie, I believe, Maggie, I don't know her name, is like 11, 12, Max is kind of the same age, so I think it's going to follow, you know, the up and coming Renegades. I see Ruby's brothers being in it as well, and I think it's interesting. I'm going to read more if she is going to continue with it. I feel like she has to with that ending, because that last chapter was really good. When it figured out, like, I didn't see that coming at all. Like, I had a little bit of a hint of things when Nova, you know, she had Nova's star in her pocket and she felt a connection to it and things like that, which begs me to think why she didn't put that together right then and there. She can see like the kind of history of objects and kind of the path and everything. Why didn't she figure out that Nova's her sister right then and there if she could see the path of that bracelet or something like that? Hopefully, I think her powers, hopefully I'm right about that. Anyway, so the last chapter leads off with her kind of walking away like, hero villains, what are we? And all that kind of stuff. And I really liked it. She's going to have to continue on with the series. I think it was so popular. And then with that chapter, she's just going to continue on with the younger set of kids. And I will read it. I was very interested in it. So overall, like I said, I really like Supernova. I think the first couple hundred pages were slow, but the last 100, 150 was like so much action scenes and things like that. And whenever I read the action scenes, I just wanted to be like, bam, kapow, like, you know, in comic books and things like that. And after I read it, I immediately wanted to watch a Marvel movie. And I did, because I was just so high on the superhero thing that I wanted to have more of it. So, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. The ending, I think, really was just phenomenal, because I don't think anybody saw it coming until this book, especially with that one scene I talked about with Nova and Magpie and talking about the star. I think we saw a little bit of a spark there, but then it was confirmed by the end of the book. So I really enjoyed it. I like the series. I would love to hear your thoughts. What's your favorite book in the series? Mine for sure is the first book, Renegades. I loved it. I think it was phenomenal. Arch Enemies was my least favorite, and then this would have to be my second one. But overall, a fun series. I'm happy to have read this series. I love Marissa Meyer's books. I've read them all by now, and they're just fun, especially this series, all about heroes and villains and powers. Like, I really enjoy it. So I love to hear your thoughts. I'm sure I left out a lot of things about this book, so please forgive me on that. If you could think of anything, please leave them in the comments below. But I would love to hear your thoughts about how she's going to set up for the next series, if she's going to. Did you see the whole Nova Magpie being sisters? I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And probably a lot of you thought and figured out that Phobia was Adrian's creation as well. I was just the lone one in the dark there. But I would love to hear your thoughts anyway. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.